Imagine waking up every morning in a world where almost everything has a price. Your food has a price. Your education has a price. Your health has a price. Even your time has a price. You leave your home early in the morning, travel through crowded streets, and arrive at a workplace that does not belong to you. You spend 8, sometimes 12 hours producing something, selling something, delivering something, or helping a company grow. At the end of the month, you receive a salary. It is enough to survive. But it is rarely enough to feel free. You pay your rent. You pay your bills. You pay for transportation, food, medicine, and perhaps the education of your children. Then you look at what remains. Not much. Meanwhile, the company you work for announces record profits, its owners become wealthier, its investors celebrate. And you begin to wonder, if workers create so much of the value, why do they receive so little of the reward? That question is where your journey begins. POV. You are a communist. Not because you hate success, not because you believe ambition is evil, and not because you want every person to live exactly the same life. You become a communist because you believe the economy should serve human beings, rather than forcing human beings to spend their entire lives serving the economy. You look around and see people working harder than ever. A factory worker stands beside a machine for hours. A delivery driver races through traffic and dangerous weather. A nurse cares for dozens of patients during an exhausting shift. A farmer produces food for thousands of people. A cleaner enters buildings before everyone arrives and leaves after everyone has gone home. These people keep society alive. Yet many of them struggle to afford a home, raise a family, or rest without worrying about money. To you, this feels deeply wrong. You begin reading about class, labor, ownership, and inequality. You discover the idea that society is not simply divided between hardworking people and lazy people. It is also divided between those who must sell their labor to survive and those who own the businesses, land, machines, platforms, and resources that generate wealth. One group works for wages. The other group owns the system in which that work takes place. You realize that a worker can spend decades helping a company become successful without ever owning a meaningful part of what they helped create. The worker may lose their job at any moment. The company may replace them, relocate its factories, reduce their benefits, or automate their position. But the worker cannot simply stop working. Because without a salary, there is no rent, no food, and no security. That is what troubles you most. A choice made under the threat of hunger does not feel like complete freedom. People may say that everyone is free to succeed. But you ask another question. How free is a child born into poverty compared with a child born into wealth? One child grows up with private tutors, safe housing, good nutrition, professional connections, and the freedom to make mistakes. Another child grows up worrying about food, medical bills, unsafe neighborhoods, and whether their parents can continue paying rent. Both children may be talented. Both made the work hard. But they are not beginning from the same starting line. You do not believe every person must reach the same destination, but you believe every person deserves dignity, education, healthcare, safety, and a genuine opportunity to build a meaningful life. To you, freedom is not only the freedom to own property or start a business. Freedom also means being able to visit a doctor without fearing bankruptcy. It means being able to leave an abusive employer without losing access to food. It means being able to study without carrying a lifetime of debt. It means parents having enough time and energy to raise their children. It means elderly people living with dignity instead of working until their bodies can no longer continue. You start imagining a different kind of society. A society where essential services are organized around human need rather than maximum profit. A society where workers have a real voice in the places where they spend most of their waking lives. A society where major industries, natural resources, and public infrastructure are managed for the benefit of the population. You imagine workplaces in which decisions are not made only by distant executives and investors. Workers could help decide how profits are used, how conditions are improved, and how production affects the community. You believe democracy should not end when people enter the workplace. People vote for political leaders. So why should they have no voice over the economic decisions that shape their daily lives? But then history enters the conversation. People remind you of governments that called themselves communist. They speak about political repression, censorship, economic shortages, forced collectivization, prison camps, and the concentration of power in the hands of the state. You cannot simply ignore these things. You understand that ideals do not erase suffering. A movement that claims to represent workers can still silence workers. A government that claims to fight oppression can become oppressive itself. A state created in the name of equality can produce a new elite with greater power than the people it claims to protect. So you face a difficult question. Can a society truly be equal if people are not free to criticize it? Can workers control their future if all decisions are made by government officials? Can the state represent the people if the people cannot replace their leaders? You realize that calling something communist does not automatically make it fair. Symbols, flags, speeches, and revolutionary language mean nothing if ordinary people remain powerless. You begin to separate the ideal from the label. For you, communism is not blind loyalty to a government. It is not worshiping a leader. It is not defending every decision made by every country that has ever used communist language. It is a belief that economic power should not be concentrated in the hands of a small minority. It is a belief that workers deserve more control over what they create. It is a belief that no one should go hungry while food is being destroyed, because selling it would not be profitable. It is a belief that empty homes and homeless people should not exist in the same city simply because providing shelter does not generate enough money. It is a belief that medicine should be produced to save lives, not only to satisfy shareholders. But you also recognize something important. Human beings are complicated. People want equality, but they also want independence. They want cooperation, but they also want recognition for their individual effort. They want security, but they do not want every choice made for them. A society that ignores individual freedom may become cruel. A society that ignores collective responsibility may become equally cruel in a different way. Your position becomes more thoughtful. You no longer believe that changing ownership alone will solve every problem. Institutions matter. Democracy matters. Transparency matters. Freedom of speech matters. Independent courts matter. The right to organize matters. The ability to challenge leaders matters. Without these protections, economic equality can become another excuse for political control. You also understand that planning an entire economy is not simple. Millions of people need different products, services, technologies, and resources. Information changes constantly. Innovation cannot always be ordered from the top. Local communities often understand their needs better than distant officials. Therefore, your vision is not simply one enormous government controlling every shop, restaurant, and personal decision. Instead, you imagine many forms of shared ownership. Worker-owned businesses, public services accountable to democratic communities, cooperatives owned by consumers and employees, local councils with genuine power, national industries managed transparently. Small private businesses may still exist, but no individual or corporation should become powerful enough to control millions of lives without public accountability. You do not want to eliminate personal possessions. Your clothes, your phone, your home, and the things you use every day are yours. The concern is not personal property. The concern is productive property used to control the labor of others and extract wealth without fair distribution. This distinction is often misunderstood. You are not standing outside someone's home demanding their furniture. You are asking why a small number of people can own thousands of homes while thousands of families have nowhere secure to live. You are not angry because someone earns more after working harder or developing valuable skills. You are concerned when wealth becomes so concentrated that billionaires can influence elections, media, employment, housing, technology, and public policy more than entire communities. Because extreme economic power eventually becomes political power. And when political influence can be purchased, democracy becomes weaker. People may laugh at your ideas. They may tell you communism has failed everywhere. Others may treat you as if you support dictatorship simply because you criticize capitalism. You listen to them. Sometimes their criticism is valid. You know that no economic system should be protected from difficult questions. But you also notice something strange. When capitalism creates poverty, homelessness, financial crises, exploitation, or environmental destruction, people describe these events as unfortunate problems. When socialism or communism creates problems, people often describe those failures as proof that the entire idea is impossible. You do not want double standards. You want honest comparison. You ask people to judge every system by how it affects ordinary human lives. Does it give people security? Does it protect freedom? Does it reward useful work? Does it distribute power fairly? Does it protect the environment? Does it allow criticism and peaceful change? Does it give the next generation a better future? You are not searching for a perfect society. You know perfection does not exist. You are searching for a society in which fewer people are forced to sacrifice their entire lives simply so a small group can accumulate more than they could ever use. POV. You are a communist. You still go to work. You still pay your bills. You still live inside the system you criticize. You buy products from large corporations. You use technology created by private companies. You understand the contradiction. But living inside a system does not mean you must believe that system is permanent. Feudalism once appeared permanent. Kings once claimed that their power came from God. Workers once had almost no legal protection. Children once spent long days inside dangerous factories. Many rights that seem normal today were once called radical, unrealistic, or dangerous. The weekend was fought for. The 8-hour workday was fought for. Public education was fought for. Social security was fought for. The right to form unions was fought for. Change often begins when ordinary people stop accepting suffering as natural. That is what your belief ultimately represents. You refuse to accept that poverty is inevitable. You refuse to believe that a person's worth should be measured by their income. You refuse to believe that the economy is some uncontrollable force of nature. The economy is created by laws, institutions, workers, governments, and human decisions. And what human beings have created, human beings can change. You may never see the perfect society you imagine. Perhaps no generation will, but you believe progress is still possible. More democracy in the workplace. Stronger public services, greater protection for workers, fairer distribution of wealth, affordable housing, universal healthcare, free or accessible education. A society in which technology reduces working hours instead of simply eliminating jobs. A world in which increased productivity gives people more time to live rather than creating greater profits for a few. That is your vision. Not a world where everyone is forced to become identical. Not a world where creativity disappears. Not a world without personal dreams, but a world where one person's dream does not require another person's misery. POV. You are a communist, not because you want everyone to be equally poor, but because you question why a society capable of producing enormous wealth still allows millions of people to live without security. Not because you hate freedom, but because you believe freedom should mean more than choosing which company you must work for to survive. Not because you reject individual success, but because no success is created entirely alone. Every business depends on workers, roads, schools, hospitals, technology, public institutions, and generations of accumulated knowledge. You believe those who help create prosperity should share in it. And perhaps that is the most important part of your point of view. Your point of view. You do not see society as a competition in which only the strongest deserve comfort. You see it as a collective human project. A project built by countless hands. A project in which every person deserves a voice. A project that should be judged not by how high its richest citizens can rise, but by how safely its most vulnerable citizens can live. You are not asking for a world without differences. You are asking for a world without unnecessary suffering. You are not asking people to stop dreaming. You are asking why only a few people have the security and time required to pursue their dreams. And you are not claiming to have every answer. You are simply refusing to stop asking the question. If humanity can produce enough food, housing, medicine, knowledge, and technology for everyone, why are so many people still being left behind?